Hello, my name is Denis Pajot. I am a societologist as I use societology to study societies as organization and citizenship as a profession. If this approach surprises you, I recommend that you watch the first 3 capsules that I have published on this channel. They will help you better understand this video and those that follow. Today is a big day for me as I am officially launching the SOCIETALogy channel. If I use the term official launch, it is mainly to give myself a cutoff date, thus creating a before and an after. The before concerns the period from 2005 to today, when I invested my time and energy to better understand our societies and the important role we citizens play in their functioning and their development. The aim of this initial approach was, and still is, to develop a community of practice for citizens. 18 years is a long time. It's a very long time. I never thought it would take me so many years of research to understand these 2 subjects. But here I am today, finally ready to start the second step, which aims to share the knowledge that I have acquired since 2005. This knowledge is necessary to facilitate dialogues in a community of practice. In this video, you'll learn how a scientific void is not only the reason it took me so many years to understand these 2 subjects, but it is responsible for many of the problems we have today. Furthermore, by the end of this video, you will understand where this scientific gap comes from, how it has been filled, and what we can do with this new knowledge to help us build better societies together. Incidentally, it is precisely because I wanted to create a community of practice for citizens, rather than just a discussion forum, that I was able to find this void. To help you better understand what a community of practice is, I will soon share 2 explanatory videos on the subject, which are called The Power of Communities of Practice and The Potential of Communities of Practice for Citizens. I will then publish 2 other videos. I have named them A Deficient Societal Language and A Dangerous Void. If in the 3rd video, I explain that the origin of the scientific void is found in the language we use when we talk about our societies, in the 4th one, I explain the impact that this void has on us as citizens and on the societies we live in. This deficiency and this void affect not only our ability to have a dialogue, but also our ability to find effective, lasting solutions. Hence, if you want to know more about this subject, this video will soon be there for you. But for now, what is important to know is that communities of practice, which can be online or face-to-face, are also discussion forums. However, they are only open to professionals that practice the same profession, for example, nurses, engineers, lawyers, and teachers. Professionals participate in these communities to share knowledge, skills, and best practice with each other. It helps them become more competent in their profession, which enhances the reputation of the profession itself and increases the efficiency of the organization that employs them. As you probably imagine, the dialogues in these communities are more constructive, professional, and respectful than those we see in many ordinary discussion forums. This was the main reason I wanted to develop a community of practice for citizens. I wanted to create a safe environment free of inflammatory comments or extremism, conspiracy hypotheses, or attacks toward a person or a group of people. I was certain that this would create a positive environment which would foster constructive, professional, and respectful dialogue between citizens, as it is the case with professional communities. Setting up the infrastructure to facilitate discussion in such a community, both in terms of technology and knowledge management, is fairly straightforward, as we basically use the same tool that we use to manage discussion forums. For example, when I decided to use my spare time to start a community of practice at the end of 2005, it only took me about 18 months to set up the technological and knowledge infrastructure. Naturally, unlike the community of practice for professionals, the community was open to all citizens since we all play a role in the societies we live in. The name of this community was If I Were. I thought this was an exciting approach as participants were asked to play the role of either a president or a prime minister, a minister of finance or education, a mayor, a developer, or any other role they wanted to play. They were encouraged to present their ideas and explain how this would solve the problem they wanted to solve, while creating and maintaining constructive, professional, and respectful dialogues. However, as I started to manage the community, I realized that I was missing two important ingredients to facilitate not only the interaction between participants, but also the problem-solving process. I needed to know what a society is, because that is what we wanted to change, and the role we play in the process, since it was a community of practice for citizens. Indeed, if we look at a community of practice for nurses, there is a form of self-moderation in the community. This self-control is brought forward because all nurses must complete their training and graduate in their respective field. This creates two advantages when it's time to fostering positive dialogue. First, because their practice relies on a scientific method, nurses use clear definitions, hence each word refers to only one specific concept, one specific object, or one specific role. A word does not mean something for one nurse and a different thing for another nurse. This not only facilitates communication, but also the problem-solving process. Unfortunately, this is presently not the case for us citizens, as many words have different meaning from one person to another. Second, nurses have learned that the tasks they will perform will be different depending if they work in a hospital, a nursing home, or a school. Therefore, they will adapt their language and tasks consequently, which in turn also facilitates the problem-solving process. Hence, in order to create a community of practice for citizens, I had to find clear definition for these concepts. Unfortunately, early on I realized that there was a scientific void. Indeed, as I started to look in dictionaries, I realized that whether it is a general, a sociological, an anthropological, or another type of dictionary, I was not able to find clear definitions for the words society, citizens, and citizenship. Descriptions alone are not enough to facilitate both the discussions and the problem-solving processes. To better understand the essence of a word, you need its definition, because when we have access to a definition, it allows us to classify it. As soon as we can classify a word, a series of questions naturally emerges in our mind, triggering the problem-solving process. This is what makes a definition more effective than a description. To better understand why definitions are more effective, I will soon publish a fifth video entitled The Power of Definitions. Now, when I realized that we didn't have access to a clear definition for the terms citizen and citizenship, I was really surprised. However, I was even more surprised when I realized that the same was true for the term society. I asked myself, how can we succeed in making better societies if we do not know what they are? It is at this moment that I knew that there was a scientific void. At this point, I decided to close the community until I had a better understanding of what we were trying to change and the role we play as citizens in the problem-solving process. As I look back in time, I can say that it is also at this point that I became an independent researcher. My journey into the art of sociology led me to consult hundreds of books and articles in order to find clear definitions. Furthermore, I participated in various discussion forums in order to tap into the knowledge of many sociologists and like-minded individuals. Unfortunately, as with my reviews of the various dictionaries, I was not successful. What is interesting, and here I open a small parenthesis, is that it is normal that I wasn't able to find any, because as I learned later, the sociologists David Frisby and Derek Sawyer in their book Society had already came to the same conclusion many years earlier. To the question of what is sociology, the usual sociologist's answer still remains the study of society. Yet the paradox is that for most of the 20th century, sociology has in fact not been this at all, society has proved too grand an abstraction by far for modern sociological tastes. Let's say that I would have liked to find this book much sooner. It would have simplified my task. This ends this small parenthesis. Hence, since I could not find an existing definition and that I understood the importance of definitions, I decided that I would try to generate them myself. Of course, I wasn't sure I could produce one. After all, sociology itself had failed to do so, even though it has been around for about 125 years. Nevertheless, I decided to give it a try. After all, the worst that could happen is that I would fail and join all those who had tried before me. Fortunately, because I was trying to find a way to develop a community of practice for citizens, whose objective was to help us change our societies, I did not start my research by using sociological lenses, but by instinctively harnessing the lens of management. This perspective proved to be fruitful because early on I made the assumption that societies are a form of organizations. More precisely, as we will see later, they are associations. As I mentioned earlier, a definition automatically triggers a series of questions. By defining societies as organizations, this is exactly what happened. The questions that came automatically into my mind were the following. If societies are organizations, what are their goals? What are their objectives? And what resources do they use? Fortunately, I was able to answer these questions, so I was able to conclude that societies were indeed organizations. However, there was another question that I had to answer. Organizations, either formal or informal, always belong directly or indirectly to someone or to a group of people. Thus, if societies are organizations, then to whom do they belong to? Although some people may think that societies belong to them, for example, kings, dictators, and autocrats, they do not belong to anyone in particular, but to everyone who lives on their territory. It was this observation that led me to specify that societies are associations. If we take our analysis a step further, the answer to this last question implies that we are all associates, and that our role as citizens is to participate effectively in the co-management of our societies. Hence, citizenship must be seen as a form of profession. To be more precise, it has to be seen as our primary profession. I don't know if you've noticed, but by just having access to clear definitions, it already gives us a better understanding of our societies and the role we play within them. For my part, it is not the only thing that I notice. By answering these questions, I noticed something interesting. Indeed, not only did I confirm the assumptions that societies were organizations and that citizenship was a form of profession, but I saw that a new management science was emerging. This science allows me to study any society no matter where it is located in our global village. However, this is not an ordinary management science, the one we usually use to manage our organizations, but a science associated with macromanagement. Macromanagement is a management science which helps us understand and evaluate our collective goals and objectives, as well as how we generally use our collective resources. The depth of this new science seems to perfectly fill the scientific void that previously impeded our societal development. I named this new management science SOCIETALogy. In a few weeks, I will publish a sixth video whose title is SOCIETALogy, a quick overview. The latter will enable you to find out more about this new management science. In particular, I will present two societological models. The first describes what a good society is, which societologically speaking is a balanced society, and what a good citizen is, which societologically speaking is a competent citizen. After all this research and discoveries, I now have access to clear definitions as well as a new science which facilitates the problem-solving process. Thus, since I now have the tools to facilitate both dialogues and problem-solving, I should be able to restart my community of practice for citizens. And that's what I'm going to do in the near future. But first, I have one more problem to solve. To understand this problem, let's look at the action nurses would need to perform to create a community of practice in the hospital they work in. In reality, it would be relatively easy. All they would have to do is invite all their colleagues to participate at a meeting where they would explain what is a community of practice and why they think there should be one in their hospital. If their colleagues agree, they could thus start the process immediately because all their colleagues already possess the knowledge and the skills to find solutions to the various issues they need to solve, while having constructive, professional, and respectful dialogues. In short, their mental model is either identical or at least similar enough to be compatible, which reduces obstacles to understanding and personal conflicts. As with previous subjects, I will be publishing a video in the next few weeks on the subject of mental model. This 7th video is called Mental Models in the Spotlight. Regrettably, this is not the case for us citizens. None of us have graduated from a program whose goal was to form us in order to become professional citizens, since our leader did not have access to a science that could have guided their actions. This made it impossible for them to develop a school program worthy of the name. Thus, we do not possess the necessary knowledge and skills that would facilitate our dialogues and our problem-solving processes. Hence, it makes it very difficult to find solutions. We only have to look at the current state of the world to see that there is certain regression. Hence, before I launch our community of practice, I first need to share the knowledge I have acquired over the years in order to facilitate the development and the functioning of the community. The good news is that this is the main goal of the SOCIETALogy Yours channel. And to start the process, in the next few weeks I will publish the 7 videos I mentioned above. Subsequently, I will publish a second series of 8 videos, which will help us understand the evolution of our sociality. Among other things, we will learn how we move from a solitary lifestyle to a social lifestyle, and the impact this had on us as individuals and our collectivities. More precisely, I will identify the knowledge that we had to acquire and the skills that we had to develop to facilitate our social and societal integration. Finally, I will publish a series of videos in which I propose solutions to resolve the major problems of our societies, which I call our societal cancers. As you can see, there is a lot of knowledge to be shared. That being said, I do not yet know if I will launch the community of practice only when I have published all the videos or when I have published a certain number of them. Everything will depend on the interest that my videos receive and the financial resource that I have at my disposal. Voila, this concludes my official launch. I hope you like the content and appreciate the initiative. If so, I invite you to complete 3 actions to help me promote this new channel. First, click the like button, then share the video with your colleagues, your friends, and your family, and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts below, both on the content of the channel and on the idea of a community of practice for citizens. Thank you, and see you next week for my next video.